Hello guys, welcome back to Path Nostalgia for another brief review. This is going to be brief, this is. Gangster number 1 from 2000, directed by Paul McGuigan, starring Paul Bettany, Mark McDowell, he's got David Thewlis in, Jamie Foreman's in this as well, a young Andrew Lincoln is in this movie as well. Interesting cast. Anyway, let's go into this. So, Gangster number 1 tells the story of a man known as Gangster. That's the name of the character. Played by Mark McDowell, he's basically reminiscent of what he did back in the 60s when he was a young man. The young gangster played by Paul Bettany is basically one of the main sort of hitmen around the swing 60s, of course, in London, and he's basically hired by a guy called Freddy the Butcher or something like Freddy the Butcher. I think that's the name of him, played by Thewlis, of course, and I think as the film progresses, it sort of goes into the motives and everything. It goes haywire. He's basically been sent by. He's basically been working under this guy called Fred the Butcher. But I think later on in the film, of course, he sort of goes against him and has to betray him. It's basically it's those movies, of course. You work for a crime boss. Something goes wrong, and then you have to end up killing them in the end. That's how it is. You have to kill your employer. Your main boss that you worked for at the beginning of the movie, then afterwards to the end, the film's climax, the main sort of final boss, it's him. So yes, that's how it feels. Let's talk about Paul McGuigan first. So Paul McGuigan, interesting director, of course. His previous film that he did which was his directorial debut, was 1998's The Acid House, which is based on the Irving Welsh story collection. And afterwards he did this movie. He did some other films, of course. He directed the first 2 episodes of Series 1 for Sherlock, and I think he did the other 2 for Series 2 as well. He's done a few other films here, there and everywhere. I mean, he's still a good director, of course. He's still working television and a couple of films now and again today, so that's pretty good. Paul Bettany, of course, everyone knows he plays Vision from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As people remember him from the movie Wimbledon, he was in... what else was he in? I'm trying to think. I forgot, actually. I don't know, actually. There might be some films that I come up and think, oh yes, I remember from there. But those are sort of like some common roles he was doing in. David Thewlis, he was in Dragonheart, he was in a few other films, of course. He was meant to be in a... What was it? It was meant to be in a film, I forgot what it was called. But he went to do Dragonheart, he was through Dragonheart, actually, I think. I forgot what it's called now. It was meant to be in Die Hard with Vengeance. That's why. It was meant to be that thing, and afterwards he did. Jamie Irons replaced him. He was meant to be the main sort of villain in that, but never succeeded. So he was in there. Jamie Foreman, of course. Which is interesting about him. I think no one knows about this. He was actually a good friend with the Krays. He was like He used to be friends with them. He was in EastEnders, of course, by Derek Brown, and of course, he was in that one episode of Doctor Who, The Idiot's Lantern, as Reggie Connor, I think his name is. You know who the mustache wearing husband, sort of the paramount abusive husband, pretty much in 1950s Britain during the coronation. Andrew Lincoln, of course, he plays Rick in Walking Dead, of course. He was also in some show called Teachers for Channel 4. There's been a few here things there and everywhere. Mark McDowell, of course, Clockwork Orange fame, the Rob Zombie remake of Halloween. He was in something called Suck. I remember, like some vampire movie with Iggy Pop, believe it or not. But he's been in a few other movies as well, so fair enough. So it's a good British cast. This, I mean, how it's shot, it's quite nice. I mean, it's done by Film 4 Productions, of course. or was originally called Chowfall films. Again, it's that sort of gritty realism that it has in this movie, which is perfect, of course. I mean, it's in the 60s, they do a decent job of replicating the 60s, fair enough, and the cast are on point. So my understanding of Gangster #1 actually came through DVDs, of course. My parents, well, back in my day, back in those days, newspapers had promotional DVDs in, and sometimes they would do like special, like, for once maybe a week, they would do like a special line or a range or something of specific movies. It could be a focus on the Carol movies, it could be something based on children's TV shows. In this case, it was basically something called 18 plus, and that featured a few movies, of course, that were ranging from, I think, from the 60s to the 90s, of course, maybe the early 2000s. I mean, my parents had these, of course. I still have a few somewhere around here somewhere. They had them, of course. I mean, the films, I think, because Gangster #1 was one of them, of course. That was in the collection. You had also Rita Sue and Bob 2, The Debt Collector with Billy Connolly. You had The Bitch with Joan Collins, which is based, I think it was based on a book by her sister, actually. I think it was, actually. What else is there? Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead, and The Crying Game, Neil Jordan's The Crying Game. So those are quite a few interesting titles there. Mainly British film. Mainly British films, but there's like 2 American films, of course, the Romero movies, of course. And I thought it was quite interesting. I never watched Gangster #1, many years down. Well, I never watched it because I couldn't be bothered. I mean, 18 plus, I was only a kid by then. But I watched it sort of recently, and I thought, it's good. It's good. I mean, it's a film that was still kept in its its original case. I mean, the artwork itself sort of. It's interesting in seeing pictures of Paul Bettany in his underwear covered in blood, and it's quite. It's like, I think, what is this film about? And once you read it and look at the cast list and everything, you think, okay. So that's my understanding of Gangster #1, really. I mean, I've seen some like other stuff like with Cinema Club and everything, who actually released it, film 4, again, ties with Cinema Club, VCI and everything like that. So they had a few releases here and there. I do find it quite good, actually. I mean, it's not a bad British film at all. I mean, there may be some other films that I might want to cover that I may have a similar thing. Who knows? Maybe this is better than all the rest. That I might cover down the line. Who knows? Anyway, thanks for watching. That was my review, my sort of brief review of Gangster #1 from 2000. It's got an excellent cast of Mark McDowell, Paul Bettany, David Frulis, Jamie Foreman, and Andrew Lincoln, of course. Also, Sean Chapman's in there as well, apparently. Anyway, thanks for watching. See you for the next video.